There was a backpack that was left in the bedroom, same bedroom, that was not ours.
What was in that backpack?
Don't know. I didn't know it was there. I just saw pictures taken at the crime scene. I said, well, that's not ours.
Ah, the mysterious backpack and the idea that rope came from it or came out of it. Well, that was brought up by Lou Smith as early as 11 July 2001 in a documentary titled Who Killed the Pageant Queen? It was produced by Michael Tracy, the same arch apologist that appeared a few weeks ago in the Netflix series. This is what Lou Smith said about this evidence, the backpack and the rope, in that documentary. He said, what's interesting about this room, we did see that some of the drawers in the bathroom right off the bedroom were partially open. It looked like they were out of place. Also in this room, there was a rope, and we don't know where that rope came from. No one can explain why that rope is in this room. Also, what was real interesting in this room, and it's just a small detail, is that there was a dust ruffle that was tucked in, except for just a small area that seemed to have been pulled out. Now, does that mean that the killer may have been under that bed? We just don't know, but it's just an observation. Lou Smith goes on to imaginatively speculate that the killer was like lying under the bed and looking towards JonBenet's room from under the bed, referring to this place as a perfect vantage point. In addition to the intruder's backpack and rope, John also brings up a pubic hair left by the intruder on JonBenet's blanket.
But to Ramsey, it is one hair that could be critical.
We have an unidentified pubic hair that was found in the blanket that was wrapped around JonBenet. We know that for a fact. That, to me, offers a huge hope for a solid DNA result that could be put in the right format and do genealogy research. That's perhaps the most important piece of evidence we have.
I have to say I was completely and utterly gobsmacked by this, but John still wasn't done. He went on to say,
John Ramsey has a message if someone out there is holding information.
Please help us. I'm not vindictive. I just want an answer.
The answers are coming.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. So I don't know if you guys know, John Ramsey actually met, I think on Monday, with the Boulder PD. They had a meeting for about an hour. Not much has been mentioned of that meeting other than that it's obviously about DNA, and it's just a matter of time, according to John, not if but when. And I think another thing that emerged out of that meeting is that genealogical testing has not yet taken place. In this analysis, we're going to deal with some of the answers John seems to be looking for, answers to the 3 evidence bombshells mentioned in his most recent interview with CNN. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. By the way, thanks very much for the positive feedback on the different format in the previous video. There have also been 2 recent reviews on my book Christmas Star, left on the 13th and 14th, one from the United Kingdom and another from Germany. One writes, amazing book, well written and great insight into the Ramsey case. And then the other says that the book made me think and gave me a whole new perspective on this case. Really glad I found this author. Finished the book in just a few days, on to the next one. So please keep those coming. Just a reminder, unlike many other YouTube creators, I don't do live streams, so I really rely on you guys in terms of super thanks. So if you have never hit the thanks button, please consider doing so. And let's get started. So as you've just heard, John has questions. He's looking for answers to these 3 evidence bombshells. He's just met with the police. Well, can we assist him? Let's start with A, the unidentified, untested pubic hair. Can we provide an answer to who that hair belongs to?
We have an unidentified pubic hair that was found in the blanket that was wrapped around JonBenet. That's perhaps the most important piece of evidence we have.
Wow, I just got a big headache.
I mean, this is just astonishing. I am completely blown away. Here we are in 2025, and we're being told that this could be critical. And there's an interesting backstory to this hair. Let's go back to early 1997, and this is from what Lawrence Schiller wrote about it. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation reported to the police that a pubic hair had been discovered on the white blanket found around JonBenet's body. When the hair was evaluated under a compound microscope, it showed a high degree of buckling or twisting and a greater degree of curl than chest or scalp hairs. Then, about a year after that, February 1998, the hair remains unidentified. And this is according to Steve Thomas. Scientists from the CBI and Cellmark give a briefing to police in which they state that it might not be a pubic hair at all, but possibly a hair from a chest or beneath an arm. And guess what? Thomas would prove to be right in that speculation. Then June 1998, the still unidentified hair has been passed on to the FBI for more sophisticated mitochondrial DNA testing. But the DA's office said the testing had not begun, get this, because the FBI would not allow Team Ramsey to be present in the lab. So, as long as you can prevent this hair from being tested, the Ramseys can kind of wave it to the media and say, hey, we found a pubic hair, right? And obviously, where people's thoughts inevitably go, given that information. But I think it's important to stress the testing doesn't happen because the Ramseys insist on having their team be present. What do they want? Do they want to test the hair and find out? Or are they setting conditions which ultimately prevents the testing from taking place? And rather than the district attorney overruling this, which I would do if I'm the district attorney, I want to get the show on the road. I want to move this case forward. Rather than the district attorney doing this and saying, just do the damn tests. What happens? The tests don't happen. And who do you think that suits? It's actually fascinating how the testing around this hair is an inversion to what is going on right now, where John Ramsey seems to be very impatient. He claims that he's insisting on vital evidence being tested as soon as possible and suggests that the Boulder PD, I don't know what he is saying in the past, were they stubbornly, stupidly, or something else, simply refusing to test the DNA and solve the case. Because back in the day, according to Steve Thomas, and again quoted by Lawrence Schiller in Perfect Murder, Perfect Town in 2000, this was the situation. There was only one test called advanced mitochondrial that could still be done to tie the pubic hair to someone. By the way, those same tests have been used very successfully in the Rex Heuermann case to tie that evidence from the victims to the potential perpetrator. But going back to Lawrence Schiller, there was so little left of the hair after the previous test that this mitochondrial test would destroy what remained. Some of the detectives believed that the hair belonged to some family member, but the couple's attorney had objected to doing the destructive test at this time. Can you see how it's an inversion? We want to just find out for sure whose hair this is. And the final test that would establish this, well, we don't really want to do a destructive test. Ironic, right? They insisted that it should be conducted only when a suspect had been matched to other elements of the crime. That's Team Ramsey insisted on this. And of course, no one, including the Ramseys, had been conclusively matched to any element of the crime. So what you have is Team Ramsey objecting to the testing of what John Ramsey is now describing as perhaps the most critical item of evidence. Do you see why it's important to have an educated reporter speak to people in this case? In January 2002, legendary sleuth Lou Smith also described this as potentially the strongest piece of evidence. And this is again quoting from Perfect Murder, Perfect Town. Smith said, "It has been described as a pubic hair or axillary hair, and that would suggest very strongly to me, if it is an axillary hair, that it is probably from a male. Someday they will be able to match that hair with someone because they are, with mitochondrial DNA, the new testing procedures they have got, we will be able to positively identify the source of that hair. And if it belongs to our killer, that'll be the strongest piece of evidence." Well, was he right? Was this legendary detective from Colorado right about the hair. In 2005, Detective James Kolar gained access to the Ramsey file, and 7 years later, Kolar published Foreign Faction. In his book, and this is someone who had first-hand access to the evidence file, Kolar described the results of testing the hair as follows. Well, it was not from a male contributor, but female. It was not a pubic hair, and it likely belonged to Patsy Ramsey. And this is quoting from Foreign Faction. One particular sample of hair collected from the blanket that had been wrapped around JonBenet's body had initially given the appearance of being a pubic hair. Investigators thought this might belong to a male perpetrator. The FBI was later able to identify this as an auxiliary hair, in other words, either an underarm, a back, or a chest hair, and determined it did not come from the pubic region of the body. Mitochondrial DNA tests were run on this hair, and the FBI technicians determined that the hair shaft did not belong to an unidentified stranger. Patsy Ramsey could not be excluded as the source of the hair, and it was noted that it could have come from either her or someone else in her maternal lineage. So I guess also potentially one of Patsy's sisters, although what is the chance, what is the possibility of one of Patsy's sisters' hairs ending up in the dryer, which is where the blanket came from as well. Now, so much for Lou Smith's vaunted theory of a single piece of evidence that could break the case in his favor. And also so much for John Ramsey holding up a piece of evidence yet again that supposedly proves an intruder did it, only for it to suggest, like so much in this case, well, didn't it seem more likely that it came from inside the home and was more likely connected to the Ramseys? If you think about it, the Ramsey housekeeper felt that blanket came from the dryer because I believe she'd left it there, she'd put it there. And so isn't it obvious that that's how Patsy's hair ended up on the blanket? Because it's completely absurd is the alternative. The notion that some male pedophile stripped naked, I mean, how else is a pubic hair going to come into this equation unless you are not wearing all your clothing, right? Sufficient for pubic hair to transfer onto the blanket, but not onto JonBenet. And now think about this. The pedophile naked, remember, ends up engaging in some sort of activity using a paint stick. Now, so why does he need to get naked then? And if you take it even further, he's written the ransom note, he's put it on the stairs, he's now down in the basement, but now he's completely naked. What if Patsy came downstairs then and stumbled on the note with the naked intruder still inside the house? Anyway, see how absurd it is. Now let's go on to B, unidentified palm print never tied to anybody. Do you think we can help John provide insight and answers in this area?
They found an unidentified palm print that's never been tied to anybody. It was on the door, a little door leading to that room that...
Has John ever heard of Google? I mean, Google the terms JonBenet palm print. Go on. Do it yourself right now. Because what I get is prints in JonBenet case identified, dated 24 August 2002. JonBenet prints identified 23 August 2002. Prints found in Ramsey home unrelated to slaying 24 August 2002. The palm print on the wine cellar door was matched to Melinda Ramsey, and as you can see from the reporting, this has been known for decades, for more than 22 years. And so once again, we have mysterious, unknown evidence that ends up not being very mysterious after all. And while everyone seems to be leaving behind evidence, even people who weren't there, like Melinda and John Andrew, the intruder just can't seem to get it right to leave evidence anywhere. And that brings us to C. There was a backpack that was left in the bedroom that wasn't ours.
There was a rope left in one of the bedrooms that wasn't ours. There was a backpack that was left in the bedroom, same bedroom, that was not ours.
Here, John is referring to a rucksack, not a backpack, and it was left by a chair in John Andrews' bedroom. So was it the forgetful intruder's backpack, or was it John Andrews, because it's in his room, something that John neglects to mention? What do you think? Here's the short version. While Lou Smith said that the sack of rope proves the intruder theory, prosecutor Michael Caine said John Andrew was a backpacker and that the rucksack belonged to him. It was a rucksack with rope in it, not a sack with rope in it, as Lou the legend understood it. And then here's what John Ramsey said at the time. It's John Andrews' room. There are some clothes piled on the chair, which isn't unusual. Maybe it's a backpack. That's referring to this bag. He doesn't seem to be particularly fussed about it. I don't recognize it. None of that seems to be mentioned right here. The interesting thing that John also discloses is that he only saw the backpack in crime scene photos. That's odd because Linda Arndt sort of used John Andrews' room as a place to discuss with John how to handle the kidnapper's call, and I think the plan was that John would take the call in that room. So one would imagine John spent some time in that room himself, John Andrews' room, that morning. Everyone else was looking for items and signs and evidence that was out of place. So if there was a backpack on a chair with a rope inside it, in the room right next to JonBenet's, and John didn't notice it when he was there. And this is what he said also at the time. Oh, well, I remember they took me aside and we sat in John Andrews' room, which is the one next to JonBenet's, and she, Linda Arndt, went through what I should do when we talked to the caller. Anyway, here's what Patsy Ramsey said about it at the time. Haney says, do you know when John Andrew last would have stayed there? In other words, in his own room. Patsy. No, not for sure. Haney. Did he store other things there? Patsy Ramsey. I know he had some of his things, some college at the house, but I really can't tell you where they were or what it was. Now, maybe I can help you out, Patsy. John Andrew flew out to Atlanta on December 19, so it's likely he was last in the house close to that date. John Andrew was also studying at the University of Colorado, which is right there in Boulder, and so probably he had some of his things at his parents' home. We also know from the Ramseys that John Andrew liked to hike, he liked to camp, and this was Boulder after all. So having a rucksack in Boulder, and if it was John Andrews' room, well, wasn't it likely John Andrews? Wouldn't that make sense? Trip de Muth also asked Patsy, anybody in the family have footwear like that? And Patsy said, John Andrew, he hiked. Of course, it wasn't just a rucksack, but rope found as well. And we're going to deal with that aspect in the next analysis. As short as the interview with CNN was, I also think we need to do some fact-checking of the rest of John Ramsey's statement. So look out for that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.